Thank you so much for hitting the play button on your favorite listening device of choice from wherever you listen to podcasts. My name is Duff Tyler, and this is A Duff Said. For the first time in 35 years, someone other than Kurt Richardson is now coaching the Clarkston High School football team. Now, before we get into that, I just want to take a minute to thank Kurt Richardson for being a part of this show. Kurt Richardson always made time for me on this podcast and on the sidelines. It was always a pleasure to talk to him. I want to wish him all the best as he starts this new chapter in his life. Richardson announced his retirement back in January. That's after 45 years at Clarkston High School and with the football team. In those 35 years as head coach, he won 274 games. That's good for 16th all-time in coaching victories in the state of Michigan. And over the last decade, Richardson led the Wolves to 4 appearances in the state finals. They won 3 state titles, and the Wolves barely missed out on a 4th. But after this past season, he decided it was time for someone new to take over the program. Justin Pintar was hired last month to be the new head coach of the Clarkston Wolves. He's been with the program for the last 14 years as the offensive line coach. So what's next for the program, and what expectations does Pintar have as the new head coach? Well, we get into that and so much more. My conversation with Justin Pintar starts now. What does it mean to you to take over the program with a tradition like Clarkston has?
You know, at first, it took a little while for it to kind of hit me. And after I found out that I got the job, and you start thinking a little bit about the tradition and the history that Clarkston's had, not just in football, but in basketball and other sports. And you realize that this is one of those jobs that, I mean, if you went around the state and they said, hey, where would you like to coach? If you could pick anywhere to coach, I think you would have, hundreds of coaches that would say Clarkston. And so to take over at a place that has kind of this history, and the success that we've had, that means a lot to me. And, it's certainly something that, has started to kind of hit me a little bit of kind of what it means to take over this program.
You are taking over the program after having spent the last 14 years under Kurt Richardson as the head coach of the Wolves. How would you describe the impact that he had on you?
Coach Richardson is one of those guys that, again, across the state, everybody knows who he is. He's a Hall of Fame coach. So having the opportunity to sit and kind of just watch what he does, the way he carries himself, the way he interacts with players, the relationships that he builds with players, how much he cares about the program and the kids. So just being able to watch and learn from him, I can't even kind of put that into words what that means. He's a guy that he's a role model for players and obviously for the coaches as well. So having an opportunity to learn from him, I mean, there's not really much you can say other than I'm lucky that I started coaching in Clarkston and was able to learn from one of the best to ever coach in Michigan.
He coached the program for 35 years and won 3 state championships. What is the legacy that Kurt Richardson is leaving behind?
I mean, you said it, right? 3 state championships, numerous playoff appearances. I think it was close to 20 straight at one point. He's left, obviously, some big shoes to fill. And, the amount of success that he's had has certainly left the program in good shape as well. I mean, he left us with, he went out on his own terms. He went out with a successful last, forever, right? I mean, he's not leaving here when things were falling apart. He's leaving here when things are still in really good shape. So I just look at, again, what he's been able to accomplish. You could put his numbers up against his wins and success against just about any high school football coach in the state of Michigan. So I think his success kind of speaks for itself.
You had the perfect quote when you were hired to take over for him. You described it as moving in to $1 million house. I thought that was the best way to describe it, because certainly we have a lot of those here in the Clarkston area. But this program, like you said, it's in great shape right now. So you're taking over with not too many pieces to have to rebuild or anything like that. But if there are any renovations, are there some that you are planning to make?
It'll be little things, I think, that we change. There's not going to be any kind of wholesale changes. Our offensive staff is all coming back. Our defensive staff, those guys retired with Coach Richardson. So we do have a new defensive staff coming in, but they're all guys that were in our program already. So we're not looking to make kind of big changes. There may be little schematic changes we make here and there. But for the most part, we're not looking to throw out, what's worked for us in the past. There may be little things that, that we tweak, something, like pregame, how we handle pregame or something. But in terms of scheme and stuff, we're not looking to really make big changes.
You had a quote in the Oakland Press. You said you grew up with a coaching mindset. How would you describe that mindset?
Yeah, so when I said that, really, when I was younger, I would sit in class, and it wasn't that I wasn't paying attention to what was going on. I think I was paying attention to what was going on, but instead of doodling, I would sit there and just draw up plays, right? My mind was always on whether that was basketball plays that I was thinking about or football plays. From the time I was, maybe 14, 15, 16 years old, I would sit, and that just kind of kept me occupied while I was sitting in a class for an hour. It just was always something that I always had on the back of my mind. My brother's a coach. He coaches varsity basketball in Alpena. So I think it's just something that is inherent a little bit, something that was kind of born into us. When I graduated from high school, our Little League program had kind of folded. The town was really small. We didn't have a lot of younger kids, but me and another kid at 17 years old started our Little League program back up and got the kids an opportunity to play again. So coaching was always something that I enjoyed doing. It was something that I always knew I wanted to do. And I knew it would be part of my life when I got older.
I think it's perfect that you described yourself as somebody in class, drawing up plays and doing some doodles here and there, because ultimately you became a teacher yourself. What got you into teaching, and what subjects do you teach?
I teach high school social studies this is my 15th year at Clarkston. And I've pretty much had economics now. I teach our AP economics class and a couple other economics classes. Same thing. Like I enjoy watching the success of others when you teach them something, whether that's in class or out on the football field. When you teach someone something and then you watch it like develop and they pick up what you're trying to teach them, it's just there's something about that is gratifying. So teaching to me is a lot like coaching, right? You're looking to help people, and there's just a sense of satisfaction that I get from seeing young kids develop and grow and get better at whatever you're trying to help them with.
Whether it's in the classroom or out on the football field, how would you describe your approach to kind of imparting some of your wisdom on to young men and leading them in both the football field and the community?
One, I think you just kind of lead by example, and that is something that people take notice of. I also think like life lessons and trying to impart life lessons that maybe I've gone through or have experienced, and trying to get them to understand, like, here's the things that I've done. And I think sometimes too, kids seem to, when you tell them the mistakes you've made, that that is something that I think they really kind of key on, and it maybe hits home a little more. I think they're so used to adults telling them, like, this is what you should do, this is what you should do, this is what you should do. But they don't always hear about the mistakes that were made. And I think sometimes when you can talk about the mistakes you made, you make a different connection with kids, and being able to connect with players on a more personal level is a huge part of this game. The more they know you care about them and who they are, the harder they're going to play for you. So I think building those connections, building those relationships is a huge part of coaching and again, having a successful program.
So being a head coach and a teacher for young people is something you've always been working towards. When did you first discover that passion?
Like I had mentioned earlier, I think it was something that has kind of always been there. When I was in high school, I talked about drawing up plays and stuff, but just helping out. I think I never thought I was the best player, the most talented player, but I always thought I was a good teammate, and I always tried to get others involved. I played point guard, and I was always a pass first point guard. Like I didn't care about myself scoring. I like to see other people score, and I just like the team success. So like I said, I think that the sports connection there, that translates into kind of everything that you do, including teaching. It's the same concept. I like to see the success of others, and it's just been there, from the time that I can remember, as far as like high school age. It's always been there.
Between drawing up those plays in the classroom and being out on the basketball court, being an athlete, was there ever a time when you took those plays to your coaches and, started to have those conversations that maybe instilled that passion in you to want to start coaching?
I don't know that I ever brought them to the coaches. It was more something that I did. But I always had good relationships with my coaches. In football, I was team captain my senior year. I was team captain in basketball. So I always felt like I had those relationships with my coaches, that if there was an issue, I could go to them. But it was never me going to them and really, here's what I think we should do. I guess I didn't feel like that was my role. But I always felt like I had good relationships and connections with my coaches when I was growing up.
Who were some of your biggest influences in coaching and really turning your eyes toward making that a goal for yourself?
So I had mentioned, Coach Richardson, obviously. My high school basketball coach, Darren Weber, was a big influence on me. He was a guy that he came into our program. I'm trying to remember when he took over the program. It was a few years before I got to varsity, but he really, the work ethic that he had as a coach, how much he cared, his preparation, I think that's something that kind of rubbed off on me. Later on, when I got to Clarkston, I started, like I said, in October, and right when I got hired, Adam Kern, who I had taken over for, and he was becoming an assistant principal, he took me down, and I met Dan Fife, and I sat down with Dan Fife, and I tell you what, that there's talk about guys that have influenced a lot of people. Dan Fife is one of those guys. And so I ended up getting involved my first year at Clarkston with the basketball program. I ended up coaching basketball. I think it was 11 or 12 years. I coached seventh grade, eventually moved up to freshman, and then up to JV head coach. And there was a ton that I was able to learn from Coach Fife as well. Just, again, another guy that his passion and how much he cared about the kids, how much he pushed kids, but not he pushed kids in the right way. He knew how to get kids to play hard. And so, being able to kind of watch him and learn from him was another guy that's influenced me incredibly over the last, 15 years or so.
Yeah, so when you arrived in Clarkston, how much did you know about the community when you first got here?
So I didn't grow up down here. I grew up in the UP, went to Central Michigan, But even then, I had always heard about Clarkston. Even though it was never someone that we would have played or participated against, you knew the name. I'm a big Michigan fan, so growing up, I remember Dugan Fife playing and with the Fab Five and that. So, I knew the Fife name already, and I knew Clarkston was a big sports town, a big sports community. I kind of got lucky because the teaching market was not very good when I got out of college. And I got lucky to get into Clarkston, but I couldn't have picked a better spot to get involved and get into sports, get into coaching than where I did at Clarkston. So it was one of those kind of fortunate, right place, right time kind of things. And I'm lucky that I was able to get into the district that I did.
Usually when I do these types of stories about guys taking over for the head coach, someone that was a legend with the program and a huge name in the community, somebody who had a tremendous influence on a lot of people in a particular town, usually that guy that's taking over, he is a hometown guy himself. And you've been in Clarkston since 2007, but like you said, you're originally from White Pine in the Upper Peninsula. I've always wanted to know what high school football is like up there. I know that Ishpeming is really good. They've had a tremendous program for a number of years. But what is the football culture like up there?
So I went to, like you said, White Pine. We were an extremely small school, so we didn't have enough kids to even field a football team by the time I got to high school. And we had a co-op program, so we played with Trout Creek. Trout Creek is a big basketball school. They actually just played in the state finals here in March. And so our program wasn't as strong as it may be as some of the surrounding ones, because a lot of the basketball kids ended up focusing on basketball. So they had some really good athletes, but they didn't play football. But the surrounding schools, we had some really, really talented teams. Crystal Falls, Forest Park, they were a powerhouse for many, many years and won state titles. Lake Linden won a state title, I want to say, in 1997, which was about a year before I got to high school. And so Lake Linden had always had a really good program, and they were both in our conference. So we played some really, really good football programs when I was in high school. We just unfortunately didn't have that same kind of success. And like I said, a lot of that was because it was a basketball school. And when you have a small school like that, if you don't have all your best athletes playing all the sports, it's hard to be successful. So we weren't as good as I would have hoped in football, but we got to see some really good Division 7, Division 8 football programs when I was playing.
What were some of your biggest takeaways from being up there and getting a chance to compete?
I think when there's a lot of pride in the UP. When you're in small towns like that, the athletics is kind of the entertainment. And when I was growing up, I mean, we were in a small town, but our district playoff games for basketball and that would have 1,000 people in the gym. I mean, the way the community came together for sports, the way they rally around sports in the UP, that was really special. And that was one of the things when I got to Clarkston, I talked to him about, Clarkston, when you get down here and you got towns that have 3-4 different high schools in one town, it doesn't have that same community feel. And Clarkston does. Clarkston's one of those schools down here that's a big school, but it's the only school in town, and the community rallies around it. And that was one of the things, or that is one of the things that I love about Clarkston, is it's the community still, and it's all about Clarkston High School. There's no other school kind of competing for the community support. So that, to me, Clarkston's kind of like a UP school in that sense, where the support comes from everybody.
I like that comparison. That is awesome, because I've been a part of this Clarkston community since 2017. So I've been here almost 5 years. I've really enjoyed the town atmosphere that we have. There are some small town charms in it in our downtown area, but like you said, it's also got that big name that's attached to it because of the success of the basketball and football programs. I've certainly loved being a part of this community. I love the people and everything that's surrounding this area. But what have you enjoyed most about being a part of this community?
I mean, I think it's that, right? It's that it is the community support that we have in Clarkston is really unique. Growing up again in the UP, that's what I'm used to. Like I'm used to the community being a part of it, gravitating towards the athletics in town. So I love that part of Clarkston myself. And like you said, it has that small town vibe to it, and you feel like you're getting away from the city when you're in Clarkston. It doesn't have that city feel. So being able to have that in an area where you have so many people is pretty unique and special, I think.
Up next, Justin Pintar talks to me about what the expectations are for being a member of the Clarkston High School football team, and that's not just with his players, but himself as well. When my wife and I moved to Lake Orion 4 years ago, we had to do two things: get to know the area and find great pizza. That's when we met Sheldon. Sheldon's the kindest guy you'll meet in Orion Township. His heart is as big as his pizzas, and once you order one, you'll see why Sheldon is our guy for pizza time. Sheldon Street Pizza is located at 3667 Baldwin Road across from the Great Lakes Athletic Club. You can look them up online at sheldonstreetpizza.com. Sheldon is ready to serve you the best pizza, breadsticks, and sandwiches that are always made fresh when you order them. Sheldon Street Pizza, more than just pizza. And that's a Duff said. Fourth Coast Cider Works is the place to be for hard cider in Oakland County. Located in the main entrance to Canterbury Village, Fourth Coast is quality craftsmanship, quality hard cider. Stop by Fourth Coast and try some of their many flavors on tap. You can also take some home in a can or a howler. Fourth Coast is open Thursday through Sunday. For a complete list of ciders and hours, go to fourthcoastciderworks.com. The best hard cider is on the Fourth Coast, and that's a Duff said. Not available for anybody under the age of 21. Please drink responsibly. Once again, I want to say thank you so much for hitting the play button on this podcast. Now, for as little as $2 a month or $24 a year, you can help this show to continue to grow and provide the content that you enjoy. And if you become a patron of A Duff Said, we have got a lot of great gifts in store for you. We've got bumper stickers, we've got t-shirts. Heck, I'll even record your voicemail message. So if you're having trouble ever figuring out what to say, I'll say it for you, and that's A Duff Said. If you'd like to become a patron of A Duff Said, all you got to do is go to patron.podbean.com/A Duff Said. So when you get to the program, you take over as the offensive line coach, and over the years, you have helped develop a lot of amazing, talented linemen for this program. A lot of the guys that you've coached have gone on to play in college, and some have even taken that next step to the pros. What's it like to know that you have had such a tremendous impact in molding that talent?
You know, it's one of those things where you wonder how much of an impact you really have. I mean, you know, we've been really fortunate to have great kids come through. And as much as I would like to take credit, I know that, you know, we just graduated Rocco Spindler and Garrett Dellinger. I would love to take credit for where they're at, but I know that those guys are just special kids, you know, and we have Garrett's little brother, and he's going to go be a Power 5 offensive lineman. And again, you know, some of that is just, they're just special kids. So as much as I'd love to take credit and say, you know, look what I did, I know that the kids that we've had come through here are special kids, and they deserve the credit. I mean, they put the work in, they put the time in, we can kind of guide them, but they got to put in the effort in the weight room. They got to put in the effort to go work on their speed and agility. They got to put in the effort to go to different camps and work on their technique. And they do that. They buy in. And that's a big part of our culture that Coach Richardson has built here is he's built a culture where kids want to get to that level. So I would put a lot of that on what Coach Richardson's done with the culture of the program, and then the players just being willing to buy in to what we're telling them to do.
Yeah, speaking of the Dellinger family, they grown pretty big in that family. They have made some big kids that have gone on to do tremendous things in their high school football and college careers. What's it been like to coach those kids?
They're just they're fantastic kids. They're a great family. You couldn't meet nicer people. So being able to, like you said, watch their development, same thing. You could tell when they were coming up, you knew that they were just special and they were going to be really, really successful. But they're just a tremendous family. The kids, I mean, if you were introduced to them and you met them, they don't get any nicer than that family. That being said, when you put them on the football field, they can get after it. They know how to transform from being this nice human off the field to being nasty when they need to be on the field.
I love that comparison. That is so great. You have gotten a chance to make some tremendous relationships over the years. You've gotten to know a lot of kids. You've gotten to know their families. That's really what it's all about in coaching, is getting to make special contacts that go well beyond the football field. What has it been like for you to have those relationships with not just the kids who have gone on to be successful in college football, but the ones that were just a part of the program and you still got a chance to keep in touch with them and see what they've done after they left Clarkston?
Yeah, that is one of the things that's really special with coaching is you develop these relationships on a different level. You try to keep in touch with them. And then when you see them and you ask them, hey, what are you doing now? And you find out that, they're successful in whatever field they went into, whether that's the trades or they went on to college and got a degree. Just watching their growth and development and then being able to, talk to them about that later on and see the success that they've had. That's a pretty special part of coaching. And again, those personal relationships that, when you're teaching and you have 30 kids in a class and then you get a second hour and then you got 30 new kids and then you got a third hour and you got 30 new kids. And throughout the day, you might see 150 different students. It's a little harder to build those kinds of relationships with students. But coaching, when you're with them, especially as a position coach, you really get to know those, 10, 15, 20 guys really, really well. And so being able to, watch their development and growth and keep tabs on them, shoot them a message here and there, ask them how they're doing. That's one of those really cool pieces of being a coach.
When you were growing up, you had that connection with your community, and it had such a tremendous impact on you. When you see these guys take the next step in life and they're getting ready to make that next chapter for themselves, what's something that you hope that you imparted upon them that they will take with them later in life?
I think the passion piece that I talked about earlier, I think that's a really important part of anything that they're going to do in life. Find what you're passionate about and pursue that, whatever that might be. Just find that passion and go after it. So I think that's one of those kind of life lessons, and then just we have a lot of really good kids. So I think, just teaching them about being good people, being good teammates. And I know that sounds simple, but if you're a good person and you're a good teammate, you're going to be successful in life because people will they'll want to help you out. They'll want to make sure that you succeed. So I mean, it sounds kind of basic and simple, but I think those are some important life lessons that we can impart on kids.
And those are some good ones to have. I think looking around this community, I think there's a lot of people that have taken that to heart. When you look around how how well this community reacts not only to people like myself. When I arrived here, everybody was very welcoming. Everybody's been great neighbors to me. And I think we saw a lot of that this past fall, too, when there was the terrible tragedy at Oxford. Clarkston really stood up and let the community of Oxford know just how close and how much of a bond we had with that community. And you see it just about everywhere you go in Clarkston.
Yeah, no, that is very true. And you see it in the community, and then that trickles down to the kids, and they the kids see what the adults do, right? And when they see adults being good people and helping out, and they see, like you said, the support for the tragedy in Oxford, kids see that, and then they know that that's what you should do, right, when you become an adult yourself. So I think we do a great job in this community of setting an example for kids, and we want to do the same thing within our football program.
Speaking of the football program, in that time that you were an assistant coach with the program, when did you start to think to yourself that someday you wanted to be a head coach? Not necessarily at Clarkston, but when did you start to have those thoughts that, you know what, I feel like I can take this to the next level. I feel like I can be in charge of an entire program.
I mean, Coach Richardson had coached for, I think it was 35 years as the head coach. So I knew that there was going to be a point where he was going to step down. So I would say, in the last few years, that was kind of in the back of my mind that, there could be an opportunity here. I've never really had a desire to leave Clarkston. So when it comes to being a head coach, my thinking was, okay, there's going to be a time where there may be an opportunity here at Clarkston, but I was never interested in leaving Clarkston to go somewhere else. It was always about staying here, and really a big part of it is I want to make sure that we maintain what Clarkston has had. I didn't want to see someone come from outside the program and start getting rid of our coaching staff. We have about 25 to 30 coaches, I think 7 through 12 in our program. We had our varsity defensive staff retire. Every other guy in our program plans to stick around. So that continuity of our program from 7 through 12, I wanted to make sure we were able to maintain that and keep that going, because we have something special in Clarkston. So I just wanted to make sure that, that was always my big thing in wanting to become head coach, is I wanted to keep this program on the right track, going in the right direction, winning state championships, building that culture 7 through 12, keeping the staff together. That was what I always had in mind, and why I wanted to take over.
The pipeline that Clarkston has, like you said, all the way from 7 to 12 is phenomenal. And when you have a good, well-oiled machine like that, success is obviously going to come with that. And you were a part of the program during those 4 trips to the state finals in the last decade. What were those experiences like for you?
Yeah, so I actually, when I first started, I started out at our lower levels. I started out at 7th grade and was 7th grade assistant early on, and then head coach, and then came up to varsity. So I've kind of seen it through kind of all the levels, right? Or at least from the start to the top. And I can remember when I was coaching 7th grade, and I would talk to those kids about, the bar here in Clarkston isn't to just make the playoffs. It's not just to, make the playoffs and win a district. It's to win state championships. And I think really from 7 through 12, we're in lockstep. Our offense and defensive scheme, we run the same stuff with our 7th graders as we do with our varsity guys. Now there may be, there's a lot more detail that comes into play when we get to JV and varsity. But our system, we run from 7 through 12. Defensively, we run the same system, 7 through 12. And all the coaches are on the same page. They all want to see the program be successful. So that continuity is really important. And I've been able to watch kind of from the outside a little bit, not from the outside, but as a 7th grade coach, when I was a 7th grade coach, I was able to watch what the varsity staff did. And then when I got up to varsity and started coaching with them, and being able to kind of in my first years, learn a lot from what those guys were doing. Rich Porritt was an offensive line coach when I first came up, and I worked with him, and I learned a ton from coaching with Rich Porritt. And so I guess I've had kind of this unique experience of being able to see the program at the lower levels and then come up and work at the higher levels. And like you said, to be a part of the state championship and the runs that we've had, it has been just that's really made me the coach that I am today.
I want to talk a little bit now about the team that you're going to be taking over for this coming fall when the season gets underway. Last year, Clarkston was 8-2, and you have some big-time talent coming back in all-state running back Ethan Clark. He's going to be back for his senior year. I got a chance to see him at last year's Stony Creek game. That was the game in which his first couple of carries pretty much covered the entire length of the field. That was a big key to your win that night. This guy is a phenomenal athlete. What has it been like to watch this kid over the last 3 seasons?
Yeah, Ethan's another just a tremendous young man. If you ever met him, I mean, he's very unassuming. He's a very, very nice kid. Doesn't say a whole lot, but when he gets the ball in his hands, he's really, really special. And he came up freshman year, and I kind of remember thinking like, I don't know if he's quite ready for this level. But as soon as he got the ball in his hands and you watched him run, you could tell we had something. And we run a lot of zone scheme, and he's a perfect running back for a zone scheme because he runs hard. He makes one cut and goes. He doesn't try to dance. He doesn't try to he'll make guys miss, but it's usually on like one good hard cut. He knows how to set things up. So his vision and his just kind of IQ, his football IQ is off the charts. And that's what really makes him. He's a really good athlete, but his ability to see things and have a feel for when to cut and how to set up a block, those kind of things are off the charts with him.
During his sophomore year, he suffered an injury that caused him to miss significant playing time, and you guys were able to fill that gap until he got back. But in that time that he was taking to recover and make his way back, what did you make of the way that he was able to bounce back from that injury and just go back to business as usual like nothing had ever happened?
Yeah, he's a kid that he wants to be on the field, and in every game that he missed, I know that drove him nuts. In fact, I think he probably rushed back a little too soon that year. He was still a little bit banged up. But 80% of him is about as good as most teams have at their running back position. So we were glad to have him back, and I love his passion for playing. He just, like I said, he wants to be on the field no matter what. He's never a kid that's ever going to take himself off the field. Right now, he's been bugging me to get on the defensive side of the ball, which I think he could probably really help us. But at the same time, he's so valuable to our offense that you got to weigh the pros and cons of putting a kid like that out on defense. But he loves the game, and he just battles, wants to be on the field no matter what. And he's, like I said, if he's hurt, he's never going to, he's going to have to be seriously hurt for him to not play.
Now, speaking of somebody who does play both offensive defense, that's receiver and defensive back Des Stevens. He's starting to get attention already as he's coming up through the program, and he has been making a tremendous impact for you, and you still have him for 2 more years with you at Clarkston. What kind of excitement does he bring to this program?
Yeah, so Des played JV football for us his freshman year, and then when we got to the playoffs, we'll bring up a bunch of our JV kids and stuff, and he was one of them. And Coach Richardson coaches our DBs, and Des really, kind of stood out in his eyes. And so Des played for us in our playoff game his freshman year, which you just don't usually see that. You don't typically have a kid that played JV come up and then find playing time in the postseason. But that just kind of shows you how special he is too. Last year he had a great year for us, started for us on defense, and then started to get more and more plays on offense. and I think he had, I want to say 5 interceptions last year. He's the kid that is just always in the right place. It seems like he's another one that just has a great football IQ and always seems to be in the right spot. When he started getting more playing time, because we would get him some reps in practice, and you just kept looking, you're like, he just gets open and he just makes plays, and you can't explain it any different. I mean, he's a really good athlete. I don't know if he's off the charts, but his ability to just know where to sit down in a zone when he's on offense and playing wide receiver, or defensively, he just knows how to kind of bait quarterbacks into throws. He just has that instinct that you can't coach. So yeah, we're really excited to not only see what he can do as a junior, but knowing that we have him back for 2 years is really exciting for us.
And who are some other guys that you're hoping to see make a big impact for you?
As an offensive line coach, I got to mention some of the big guys up front, because, those guys don't get as much love. We got a kid, Gage Heikkinen, who just won our state powerlifting championship. Really strong. Not a huge frame, not a 6'4", 6'5" kid, but really strong, plays really hard. Our center is coming back from last year, Jacob Leonardson. And he was outstanding for us as a center last year. I don't think we had any bad snaps with him. So we're excited to have those guys back up front. We got our tight end, Brody Cozen, who's starting to get some interest. He's a big body, about 6'6", 6'7", played basketball for us. We're hoping for some big things. Cole Jarvis has done a lot of work. I mean, he's a kid that is really athletic. And now he's starting to figure out a little bit of the finer details of not just being fast, but how to get himself open. He's another kid that we might see a little bit on defense. So those are a few kids on the offensive side. Defensively, Kavanaugh Dighton plays linebacker for us. Played a lot last year and was probably one of our top 5 or so tacklers. He's a kid that just loves the game of football, so we expect him to be kind of our guy in the middle and do a lot for us on that side of the ball. I'm trying to think. I'm probably leaving out. I feel bad saying this because I know I'm going to leave some kids out. Mike Hine played kind of a skill guy for us, played a lot of wide receiver for us last year, played a lot of defensive back for us, and he's really sort of taken the reins at our quarterback position. He's played some quarterback in the past, didn't play it the last couple years, didn't start for us, I should say, because we had Mike DePillo, who is an excellent quarterback for us. But Mike has really taken a leadership role on, which has been great to see. He's embraced it, and I think he's going to give us maybe a little different dimension at the quarterback position. Might give us a little more of a run pass option at our quarterback spot than maybe we did the last few years.
Yeah, DePillo has been so much fun to watch these last couple of seasons that I've been getting involved with the Clarkston program. What has it been like for you to watch this young man turn into someone really special for Clarkston football?
Yeah, Mike's came up and played as a sophomore for us. Kind of took his lumps a little bit as a sophomore, but just you could see the talent was there and just kept getting better and better. Last year had a great year for us. I think only had maybe 2 interceptions on the entire season, so took care of the ball. Really started to embrace that leadership piece last season. But he's been really fun to watch, and I've been kind of shocked that his recruiting has been not what I would have expected. I mean, he's 6'5", he's athletic, he runs well, throws a good ball. He's a great kid, great teammate. I'm shocked that more schools around here weren't interested in him. So he's actually going out to Connecticut. He's going to do a prep year and go to the 2023 class. And he's already starting to get some interest for that 23 class. So hopefully with the COVID year and some of those kids starting to graduate, there's some opportunities that open up, because I think he can be a really good Division I quarterback.
He had a really interesting take on a game a couple of years ago. There was that game that you had against West Bloomfield in the 2020 season, and that was one that you guys managed to win. I believe it was on your field. And after the game, he was doing an interview with the Oakland Press, and he was so impressed with the way that your O-line did for him. He said he was going to buy him a meal afterwards. He said, hey, guys, McDonald's is on me. And then the following week, you guys go to Lake Orion, and Ethan's replacement, whose name escapes me at this moment, but he actually had a big game that night, 4 touchdowns in relief of Ethan. And I said, are you going to buy him a meal now? And he said, no, he took my touchdowns away. I'm not doing anything for him. But he said that, of course, in a joking manner. But, it just shows how much he wants to go out there and compete and be successful out on the field. He's everything you really could want in a leader.
Yeah, he really is. He's a great kid, just a great teammate. Like you said, him bringing up the offensive line. I mean, that just shows you that he's not a me guy. He's not a me first. Look at me. Look what I did. He's willing to give credit to others and deflect. So yeah, I think he's a tremendous leader. He's a great teammate. And again, the skill set that he has and the size that he has, he's a natural kind of fit at quarterback. If you're looking for that big mobile quarterback, I mean, he's not a super shifty kid, but he against Oxford in the playoffs, he had an 80-yard run on a QB draw for a touchdown. I mean, he's got that ability. So yeah, he's a special kid. I think things are going to work out for him. I know things are going to work out for him. It's just a matter of him getting that opportunity.
So we know all the talent that you have coming back, and we all know that the expectations are not to just get to the playoffs, but to take it as far as you can. But aside from the football field, what expectations have you set for yourself as you begin this new chapter in your football career?
I want to make sure that kids enjoy playing football. So I don't know if that's an expectation for myself, but I expect for me to make it enjoyable for them. Like you said, I think probably the biggest thing really is those expectations are really high. You can't come into Clarkston and win 3 or 4 or 5 games. That's just not acceptable here. And I know that. So, my expectations really are to continue the success that we've had. And it's really it's not just getting to the playoffs. It's making a run in the playoffs. Those are my expectations. I haven't really thought about anything other than that as far as expectations go.
Well, the most important thing is, of course, to have fun, because if it's not fun, it's not going to translate into success. And I hope this is a very enjoyable experience for you. Justin Pintar, thank you so much for being a part of this week's episode of A Duff Said. Thank you so much for making the time. I wish you all the best as you take over the program. I know it's not going to be easy, but as long as it's fun, that's the first step.
Thank you, Duff. I appreciate you having me on.
And that's going to wrap up this week's show. Now, if you're hearing this podcast for the very first time, and you haven't already, be sure to download the Podbean app and become a subscriber. You can also subscribe wherever you listen to podcasts. You can also follow this show at aduffsaid.com. You can get all the latest info on A Duff Said and many other sports updates and takes by going to my Facebook page, Sports Journalist Duff Tyler. You can also get them on Twitter by following me at Duff Tyler. Until next time, this is Duff Tyler reminding you that if Duff said it, it must be true, because that's what a Duff said.